Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a victory for the Winnipeg Jets against the Edmonton Oilers. And if there is a Renny take this season that is evergreen, that just is right, proven over and over and over and over again, it's the take that the hockey gods love the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets are kissed by the hockey gods because if you were looking at removing three players from the Edmonton Oilers that would have as much of an impact as any three players could have, it would be, of course, Connor McDavid, best hockey player in the world, Leon Draisaitl, maybe this year's Hart Trophy candidate. He didn't even play in this game, and he looked like more of a Hart Trophy candidate in this game than Connor Hellebuyck did. Connor Hellebuyck had a little bit of a rough one tonight, let's be honest. We'll get to that in a little bit. But then losing your starting goaltender at the point of the game where you throw your backup in cold, and the backup looks very much like a cold backup in the overtime, and you get the result that you had there tonight. Things could not have gone better for the Winnipeg Jets as far as personnel for the Edmonton Oilers were, and they capitalized on it. You got to give them credit. You can only play the game that's in front of you, but I take a look at this game and I look at some of the goals that are scored. I like the goals that are scored. Jets, we talked about this 2 games ago when the Jets were in overtime against the Seattle Kraken. I hope people saw on that game-winning goal exactly what we've been talking about, the weave, right? Like Josh Morrissey goes in, drops the puck off to Mark Scheifele. What he does, Josh Morrissey, is he skates straight at the defender for the Edmonton Oilers just to buy that little bit of time for Mark Scheifele in that situation. Why is that important? Well, that little bit of time that he buys puts that defender in just a slightly more defensive position. And what it also does is the guy that he'd maybe be handing him off to now has to be more careful of Mark Scheifele, because Mark Scheifele's got a little bit of space. So it starts there, or in a little bit of space for your player there. Now Mark Scheifele's got it. Now the defender's in a little bit of a chase position because the Jets ran that interference that we were talking about with the cross. And then what happens? The Jets cross all over again. And now basically they run 2 Oilers into each other. One Oiler needs to take the long route. The Oiler that needs to take the long route is the guy that has Kyle Connor. A little bit of space for Kyle Connor. It's all he needs as he fires it on net against a very cold, confused looking Calvin Pickard, and boom, it's over. The Winnipeg Jets, like I've said before, it's interesting. I went and I did not or I would have thought that they would have been right near the top of the NHL in points percentage when it came to points percentage in overtime. It's not as high as I thought it would be. I think they're tied for 6th or maybe 5th in the NHL. So there are teams that have a better chance or put up a higher points percentage in overtime than the Winnipeg Jets. It doesn't feel like it to me. Like the Jets are killers in overtime. Now, you all know how I feel about overtime. It's not, and when right now it's about extra points for the Winnipeg Jets, and maybe scoring in overtime, winning games in overtime says a little something about, your will, your determination, right? The Winnipeg Jets keep playing really good teams in overtime, like the Washington Capitals, and tonight the Edmonton Oilers, who are looking a little bit more like the Edmonton Oilers that we saw of old. And they're coming away with those points. That's how you get where you are right now. That's how you lock it down so that you are going to end up first in the Western Conference. And that's how you put yourself in a position where you are still right there, tied in points at the top of the NHL to win the President's Trophy. But you know how I feel about it. The 3-on-3 overtime is a little bit of a track meet, a little bit of a contest. I don't think it says a lot about who the better hockey team is. It just says that you're better in this artificial situation. But regardless, the Winnipeg Jets, I think, seem to find the ability to be at their best at the right time. Tonight's another example of it. And I'll say this. Did they get some help along the way from the hockey gods in coming out on top in this game? I think it's pretty undeniable that they did. But that said, I said it after last game, we weren't going to see a repeat of that Canucks game. We were going to see a Jets team that was more on top of their game. But what I find interesting, and I'd like to get into and talk about, and I'll introduce the topic now rather than wax poetic on it so we can get Ken into the show here. I thought tonight was one of those nights where one way that you can challenge the Winnipeg Jets is to grind them. That we've seen Calgary's done it. Utah has done it against them. And that kind of interrupts their flow. Another way you can challenge the Winnipeg Jets is to kind of steal their speed away by being the faster team with the puck more often. And that's what we saw, I thought, for a good chunk of this game with the Edmonton Oilers tonight. They were the faster team. They were the more aggressive team. They were the team that had the puck more often. Now, it takes a couple softies by Connor Hellebuyck to put them in a position where they are in with this game. But this was definitely a night that if you play this style of hockey, the Edmonton Oilers, I'm interested to see. Put it this way, I think it's really hard for the Jets to get to that domineering, grinding style they play where they're just cramming it down your throat if you're chasing the puck all night. And one thing we know about the Jets, they love playing a style of hockey where they lose the puck, they go get it back as fast as possible. The Edmonton Oilers have shown, I thought, signs tonight of what made them so good heading into the playoffs last year and coming within a couple goals of winning the Stanley Cup in Game 7 last year. They're not so willing to give the puck back. They've got the kind of speed and the tenacity to kind of keep it away. I like the way the Jets stayed in that game here tonight. Hard to tell where these two teams are at going into the playoffs, though, when you've got two of the best players in hockey missing in that game. You can say what you want, but take Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. And listen, I'm the guy who always says there's no such thing as excuses. And I think the Edmonton Oilers played tonight like there wasn't an excuse, went out earning the point like they did tonight. But I mean, what that team looks like without Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and their starting goaltender is probably akin to what the Jets would look like without Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Connor Hellebuyck. And that's significant. I think it would be pretty hard not to say so. Anyways, that's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take. Here comes Kenny, folks. There, Ken is on his extended vacation with the one of these times you got to do the show with the dash cam and get out in the car and see the wind blowing in your hairs. That's exactly what the fans
my hair
see here tonight. But what they love to see as well is Ken happy, Ken glowing, Ken wearing the golf shirt, which means we know Ken had another great day out on the links. And you know what? We could deserve a little bit of a break here on this night. We are not Vittorio Rossi men on this night, but seeing that smile on your face and the sunburn on your forehead, Ken, is worth it all for me. Well, you're a little red,
lathered up. It's the lighting. It's the lighting in the garage, but
you don't think
I've been putting the sun. I got the sunscreen on. Don't worry.
You've got color. Let's say it like that. You're not quite matching the shirt, but you've got a little bit of color. You're approaching it. It's like those paint swatches at the store. You're like 2 in while this is the 5th one in. Anyways, that means that we're not dressed in our Vittorio Rossi gear, but we're going to get back to it, Ken. We're going to get back to it real soon here. And if you want to get back to it real soon, you know what to do. Head on down to Corden Avenue. You walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, what'd you see in that game tonight?
Well, first of all, I'm going to get into that in a second, but I got a text from Frankie today. My suits are ready. They'll be ready for Tuesday's home game. So I will be picking them up on Monday and fired up to start the unveiling. 4 suits, 4 shirts. I got to tell you, I ran into a very good very good deal at Vittorio Rossi. Good timing for me. So
have
fired right up. Yeah,
we need to find a way. Make sure you get
set me up very well. Yeah,
make sure you get a long cord on that microphone, because we're going to set you up to walk some kind of catwalk or something like that in the show. Just an hour of Ken walking back and forth, posing. Hey, you're used to holding the mic, so we can multitask. We can add
I'm going to tell you that Frankie found some good stuff for me, and it is tremendous. I can't wait to fire it up here. So,
I'm not one bit surprised.
No, not at all. Interesting game on a lot of fronts. I mean, no doubt. I mean, you touched on it. Hey, let's not kid ourselves here. The Oilers were a depleted lineup, and at times looked like it, but at other times played an incredibly sound game. Sean, I mean, I texted this to you during the game. Oilers looked way more like the playoff Oilers than they have during a good chunk of the season, where they've been a little bit lackadaisical, lethargic, whatever word you want to use. They have not been into the details nearly as often. And I get it. I mean, there's 7 goals scored today. So sure, some of the details were not right for either team. I thought that both teams were more in playoff mode today. Again, part of that for the Oilers will be that they were out without, their leading point getter. And for the third period, they were without Connor McDavid. So let's also not pretend that McDavid didn't play in the first 2 periods. So he did. Right. So we can't just pretend like the Oilers had nobody in the lineup here. So at the same time, they're at a disadvantage when their starting goalie leaves the game with 4:57 left in regulation time, and Calvin Pickard doesn't really get any shots until Kyle Connor whistles one past him in overtime. So I would say it's an interesting game on a lot of fronts. Jets at times weren't as crisp as I think we're used to seeing them. At other times, I thought they did a good job of building, getting the lead back, then getting it again. And then I did not like the goal they allowed for the equalizer. I thought it was a little bit of now this is twofold. I didn't like the fact that both Dylan Sandberg and Luke Schenn allowed Zach Hyman to get behind them. But Sean, at the same time, you got to give credit to Hyman, because he basically slithered right between them. Both Sandberg and Schenn probably thought the other guy, this was an I've got it, you take it kind of scenario. And then Wallman gets the shot through, and Zach Hyman is one of the best players in the league at doing this, getting inside position, getting leverage, and then finding the loose puck after it gets kicked out on a juicy rebound by Connor Hellebuyck. So, I am giving Hyman credit, but I'm also giving the Jets a little bit of why wait? It's pristine roofing wake-up call territory. That goal cannot be allowed in the playoffs. That is a goal that you cannot allow to happen. It's a shot that you either got to get in the lane to block the shot, or one of the 2 defenders, and these are excellent defenders. So mistakes happen during the course of a game, and like I said, Zach Hyman, one of the best in the NHL at doing it. But this is pristine roofing wake-up call territory, because that's the type of goal that gets scored in the playoffs. So the Jets need to be a lot sharper, and that's why we're going to fire it up, 13 minutes into the show.
There you go. Hey, you've been doing the wake-up call quite a bit lately, and you're the original wake-up guy. I don't know why you don't do it more often.
You're telling me that I'm on vacation here. So
I love it, yeah.
Well,
now you're back. Now you're back. Hey, you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place to take a look at all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Ken, they were just a couple houses down from me doing a roof. So, hey, I know it's this time of year. Some people still have it in their mind. Yeah, there's a little bit of snow on the roof. Let's wait till it's off. It's never too early for Pristine Roofing to come in and give your home the wake-up call. If you do it, you're going to be happy you did. Got to say, folks. You had talked about the Jets not kind of having their A game, maybe. I don't know if that's exactly how you said it. How much of that was them being challenged by who the Edmonton Oilers are as a team and how they play tonight, Ken?
Yeah, I just would say this. I mean, I liked a lot of the Jets game. I just thought that, that it was sort of as you mentioned, I feel like it was an in the trenches kind of game. And I think that the Jets were willing to grind. I just didn't like a couple of the goals against, quite frankly. That's kind of how I felt. I don't know that the Jets didn't have I don't think they were clicking on all cylinders, but I thought it was an even game. I mean, this wasn't a thing where the ice was heavily tilted one way and the Jets got lucky, nor did they take it to the Oilers to the point where they were dominant against them. So this was 2 of the best teams in the Western Conference. kind of going back and forth, kind of, punch, counter punch type of scenario. And I just thought there were a couple, again, just kind of breakdowns. I mean, I didn't like the second goal. I didn't like the Skinner goal to begin with. And I understand, there's no doubt that I thought Hayden Fleury should have been a little bit more protective with the puck. There's a neutral zone turnover, but this is a wrist shot from the blue line, Sean. This is not a high danger chance. And, we've been talking all year long about Connor Hellebuyck being a Hart Trophy candidate. That was not Hart-like for me, that goal. And neither was the second goal. And I understand it's a great rush by Connor McDavid. And it's a little bit unlucky for him that it goes off the stick of Nikolai Ehlers. And thirdly, I understand where the Jets are coming from, that Zach Hyman definitely, his skate kicks the stick of Connor Hellebuyck, but the puck was not hit very hard. And I thought he had time to close the 5-hole, quite frankly, Sean.
Agree.
This is simple to me. I can understand why they thought it should have been goalie interference. And I totally get why they used the challenge. And in a lot of ways, I think, Sean, they're actually right. Not because of the contact on the body, because of the contact on the stick. But Sean, this Connor Hellebuyck has incredible reflexes. He has time to readjust, even if he doesn't have time to reset. All he has to do is close the pads there. So again, I'm not a goalie expert, and I'm not saying this is an easy play. What I am saying is that he is the best goalie in the NHL, and I thought he had time to close the 5-hole. So I know you got into a little bit at the beginning. I didn't find Connor Hellebuyck particularly sharp, and I don't blame him for probably 4 of the 5 goals the other night. Now, we talked about the lackadaisical or, not quite sharp enough effort on the Besser second goal where he beats him to the cover. But there was something off about Hellebuyck's game in Vancouver. And what I'm going to say, I'm not saying that he's tired, Sean. What I am saying is that Eric Comrie should have the game on Sunday afternoon because it affords the Jets an opportunity to give Connor Hellebuyck a massive break in the action here in order to, I'm not saying he has to reset. What I am saying is that there aren't many chances right now to get, what day is today? Today's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. The next game for Connor Hellebuyck should be Tuesday. He gets an opportunity to get a 4-day break, and that should allow him to be ready for a first-place showdown with the Washington Capitals. This is obviously a game that means a little bit extra to Eric Comrie. We know Connor Hellebuyck loves afternoon games, fine and dandy. Eric Comrie should start on Sunday afternoon against the Buffalo Sabres, a place where he spent 2 years, a place where he ran into some injury trouble, and Sean, a place where he got sent to Rochester for part of that time. Eric Comrie is playing very good hockey of late and all year long. He should get the start against the Buffalo Sabres, and I expect that he will. Anyways, that's enough about Hellebuyck. But again, I didn't find him to be particularly sharp on those 2 goals. He did make some dandy saves down the stretch, and we'll get to him when it comes time for keg save of the game time. But I didn't find him to be particularly dialed in again in this game. And like I said, I don't see it as it's 53 starts. He's playing too much. What I am saying is that he could use a little bit of a reset and a break. And I expect he'll use that time wisely to be sharp for a first-place showdown against the Washington Capitals on Tuesday.
Before I weigh on Hellebuyck, I'm going to take a little bit of a reset myself. And Gift Guy says bad hair day because people are commenting they're ripping our hair in there. Ken.
I appreciate your hair, buddy. I think it looks good.
But they've been ripping into it. And Gift Guy says bad hair day is a good headband day. So I'm going to take the opportunity to reset
Looking
on
at
the
the
hair
positive,
right
buddy.
now.
Look at the positive.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Let's do it. Okay, when I talk about Connor Hellebuyck and I talk about him being the best goaltender in the world, one of the things that has kind of locked me in on that is, I've talked recently about him handling the puck. Connor Hellebuyck was a bad puck handler at one time in his career. And now I think he's one of the best in the NHL. He's added, so he pushes, he gets better. His numbers clearly suggest that. But the one thing that really does it for me is Connor Hellebuyck. I talk about it. Used to play on a defensively deficient Winnipeg Jets team that would go to sleep for wide swaths, not just of games of the season, and leave him hanging out to dry. And he would battle the team through those stretches and keep them in it. That 1 year, I think he gets them into the playoffs when he wins his first Vezina Trophy. But the Winnipeg Jets have switched and they're a different team. Pacing matters to goaltenders. And a lot of times you'll find goaltenders that like high volume, and they're very good at being those kind of goaltenders. And they get behind a stingy defensive team and they're really not as good anymore. Connor Hellebuyck is just as good behind, this isn't anything you haven't heard me say before, behind a defensively deficient team as he is behind a really great defensive team, which is what he plays behind right now. The key to that, from what I see, is Connor Hellebuyck is a battler. Like, Connor Hellebuyck treats every single shot, every single puck, for the most part, as like a war that he is intent on winning. And I think, Ken, when you talk about him and his last game and tonight, what I didn't like about that goal that you're talking about, I know a lot of people are talking about goaltender interference. What I see is that play happen. And I think in his head, what's happening with Connor Hellebuyck is Connor Hellebuyck himself thinks, well, this is goaltender interference. This isn't going to count. And he kind of, to me, when you look at the overhead view, kind of gives up on the play. And it's not the typical, what stood out to me is it's not the typical level of battle for Connor Hellebuyck. Like, Connor Hellebuyck, I think most times is going to, like you say, have the reaction, have the reflexes to get in front and stop that puck. So it looks soft. And the reason it looks soft is because it's so slow. There's some time to respond to that in that situation. And I just think that the Connor Hellebuyck that we're typically used to seeing hasn't battled as much the last little while on some of the goals that have been scored that we've seen. Usually you know how the Winnipeg Jets are at battling to keep the puck in the offensive zone? That's what Connor Hellebuyck is like, trying to keep the puck out of his net. We just haven't seen that. I don't think it's the biggest deal. I understand a guy having a little bit of a down turn right now. Like you, I don't think it's a tired thing. But that said, I think he could use some mind clearing time. So I think you absolutely nail it when you say that you think that it's Eric Comrie who should be going in for the next game. That's how it should be, because honestly, next Tuesday is going to be an absolute banger of a game. And of course, Alexander Ovechkin scored, which means I'm 1 goal away now from my life being turned upside down just to trigger. I leave tomorrow to go do Hockey Night in Canada between the Ottawa Senators and New Jersey Devils. I'm thinking, regardless, it really doesn't matter, because the next game that Alexander Ovechkin plays, whether he scores or not, that's the game that triggers me. So if he scores, I have to head to the next Washington Capitals game, which is Tuesday.
Good news.
So that's going to be great. I fully expect to be following them out of town on the way to Minnesota, and then we'll get going with that. I digress. I wanted to go to another comment that was made here. I think this is a good triggering of the Flame and Comfort hot take. 3 shots. Oh, wait, that's not the one. That's not. Oh, here it is. Okay. That was a great giveaway by Nurse in overtime. His contract is going to look worse every year. What I like about this comment from our guy, Pat Kanuga, is what he's pointing out is essentially that the difference in this game right now, or tonight, it's the details. And I know exactly what he's talking about. Darnell Nurse gets the puck. There's 2 Jets down low and 1 Oilers player. To get it to that Oilers player, you need to throw some hot sauce on it. And even then, it's going to be a tough place to make. You've got the Jets outmanned up high. It's not even like he's throwing it to the net to create a dangerous situation. This is just a bad, lazy, blatant giveaway that does what's the most important thing that the Winnipeg Jets do in overtime is, if they've got the puck, they hold on to possession until they create a really great scoring chance for themselves, like you saw from them tonight. And that's why they do so well, because I have not once this year seen the Winnipeg Jets take a puck like that and just lazily give away possession in the middle of 3-on-3 overtime like that. Never mind one of their highest paid players or someone who's supposed to be one of their top defensemen. So Pat Kanuga absolutely nails this. What he's pointing out is the details. In the end, the Jets' details were better than the Oilers' details. That's why the Jets walk away with an extra point here on this night. And that's why Pat Kanuga is walking away with the Flame and Comfort hot take of the game. And of course, that's brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort is soon moving. You will find when you finally get to go there, it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. Folks, you don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort. They'll take care of it for you. Ken, I also saw another comment that I really liked here. Brady, one of our guys who we've, I think Brady is still overseas.
On vacation,
he's on vacation. He's overseas. Yeah, but good to see him here. Brady says, glad the depth pulled through tonight. First and third lines have been very underwhelming recently. There's been some talk about the third line. They were split up the last game. What did you think of the response that you saw from the third line to being challenged in that last game and then put back together?
Yeah, much better for me. Much better pace from both Mason Appleton and Nino Niederreiter. Obviously, Niederreiter has one of the best setups of the entire game, finding Josh Morrissey. I thought he was more involved throughout the contest, Sean. Again, another game for Niederreiter. No shots on net, but this time at least he had 2 attempts. He has 2 hits in the game. Appleton, no shots, no shot attempts, 1 block shot. So I think there's an element of Mason Appleton's game that needs to get going a little more. And Nino Niederreiter was speaking with my colleague Mike McIntyre in Edmonton today for a story that ran in the Winnipeg Free Press and at winnipegfreepress.com, where he was quite frank about the way, that the line had been playing, that he needed to get going. And now it's 15 games without a goal for Niederreiter, though he has, now it's 2 assists in that stretch. He talked about the importance of the forecheck, Sean, and we've talked about that all year long. What made the third line one of the best third lines in hockey? Not only their defensive awareness, their ability to force lines like Connor McDavid's line when he was in the game before the third period to have to play in the defensive zone to defend, because of their ability to disrupt things on the forecheck, to churn and get offensive cycle shifts going. And that hasn't been happening nearly as much to me in the last stretch of time here. I don't want to say it's a month of time, but it's a couple weeks for sure. So those guys need to get going on that front. I thought they were better on that front. Obviously the Jets drew a couple of important penalties. That line was out there for at least one of them, if not 2 of them. So I found Niederreiter's game to be elevated. I thought that Appleton was going a little bit better today as well. But Sean, that line has another level they'll need to reach come playoff time. And they, now they have, that's 12 games to get it going. So, I saw, let's just say, incremental growth from that line, but they're not playing at the level that they were before. Now, again, it's hard to do that over the course of 82 games. We get it. But I definitely think that it was a important step forward, but they're not at the level they have been at and need to get to. So that's sort of where I'm at with them. What about you?
Well, it was interesting because you heard Craig Button talking before the game and referring to them and exactly the way that I've referred to them for an extremely long time as the best third line in the game. They definitely haven't looked like the best third line in hockey for some time now. Still time to figure this out. 12 games left in the season. And again, the motivation that the Winnipeg Jets have at this stage, they still seem to keep finding ways to win. Things still keep lining up for them. So I will say this. It's good on the Jets that, you've got fourth line contributing on a night like tonight, and we'll get to them. And the second line contributing now to a line that is a line that is, really, really come into its own here. If you think of the Winnipeg Jets continuing on the pace they're going, and here we are spending a show talking about how the third line just isn't the third line. There's comments like the first line, outside of some of the playoff, overtime performances, really hasn't been that line we've seen for a long time. And you're talking about defensive mistakes that this team really hasn't been making much this year. And they're still winning, right? Yeah. Throw into it that the Winnipeg Jets goaltender, Hart Trophy candidate, and the guy who's going to win the Vezina this year, has had a couple off nights here. and the Jets are still winning, right? You're fine. This is finding ways to win. Again, it's a term I hate when it's used to excuse a team who plays terribly and has a bunch of bad habits and fumbles their way to a win. But I like it when it means, different parts of your team are going to be able to step up and get the job done, like you're seeing here tonight. So regardless, I would say this. Some people are going to be concerned that the third line is running out of time, running out of runway. They're not going to find their way back. I definitely think that we need to see some signature third line games from the third line before they go into the playoffs. I guess what I'm saying right now is for a lot of, it's been a long season. Your Winnipeg Jets, ladies and gentlemen, have been one of these teams that really hasn't taken a lot of time off during this season. You got to think the Edmonton Oilers took the beginning of the season off and they weren't trying very much. And they took a little bit of time off recently as well. That matters. It does. You'll talk to players on teams that have been there and gone fairly deep, and they'll talk about finding rest in the middle of the season. And sometimes what rest looks like in the middle of the season is not winning and not pushing very hard. The Winnipeg Jets are a team that I think has kept the pedal to the metal for a lot of the season. So now that they're in a position that they're in right now, still finding ways to win, the right way of finding ways to win. If there's a little bit of rest happening here and lines aren't at the very top of their game, I've got zero problem with it. I think that what we're going to see from the Winnipeg Jets is a little bit of this here and there, popping up at the right times to get points that they need. Again, I think that we're going to see a real good version of the Winnipeg Jets on Tuesday when they play the Washington Capitals. But I think you're going to start seeing the Winnipeg Jets start rounding into form 4, 5, 6 games from now. And then we're going to start seeing what they look like as they raise their level back up to that playoff level.
Yeah, totally fair. And I think that that's sort of what Scott O'Neill was getting at the end of the, availability today. I mean, it was a bit of an end of a road trip game for them, right? It was I thought the details were much better than Tuesday against the Canucks, but not 100% on the details side of things. A couple things that need to be, tidied up a little bit. Obviously, power play is something we're going to get into in a minute here, but I just think that I agree with you. I mean, it's almost impossible to play at an elite level for as long as the Jets have done it. So yes, there are going to be hiccups and there's going to be the occasional hairball. And I didn't see this game as that. I saw there being a couple hiccups when it came to execution, but I don't see a lack of effort, though, obviously, everyone knows what is the deal. The Jets need to play well once the playoffs begin. They also can't coast their way during the last 12 games, and I don't think that that's entered their minds at all. But, they're having a little trouble with the artificial urgency part of things. But there's not going to be any trouble finding urgency for the game against the Capitals. Now, Sean, I'm with you. I mean, I don't think that the President's Trophy is all that important, but it gives them something to go play for when they go up against a team that is battling with it for them to a certain degree.
Here's a question, Ken, just before you move on with that. For a team like Winnipeg or a city like Winnipeg that doesn't have a collection of awards, trophies, banners like that, do you think that to a degree, because I've said this before too, and it's the way I think, I've made that clear before, but do you think Winnipeg being Winnipeg, putting a banner into the rafters is important for a friend? Like, I don't think it's important to the detriment of gassing yourself so that you can't win the Stanley Cup, but I don't necessarily think that's happening. And I wonder if just maybe in a city that is, for the most part outside of WHA success, somewhat devoid of banners, if maybe it means a little bit more to win a President's Trophy in Winnipeg in a city that doesn't have much in the way of banners.
Yeah, I would think that it's a fair point. I mean, I would even just put it this way. I mean, they've only sniffed it one time, right? I mean, 28, 17, 18, where they were 3 points behind, I think it was.
Yeah, I thought it was 2.
I'm pretty sure the Predators had 117 that year and the Jets had 114, but wow. I'd have to double check. Either way, I think it is important to a degree. No chance in where that it's more important than winning the Stanley Cup. But at the same time, all the things we've talked about for, a team that, isn't number one on most free agent lists, and occasionally has trouble convincing folks to maybe waive a no trade clause. I do think it's important for them. I also think it's important in as far as the path in the playoffs goes. I would say the divisional banner is important for them for all the reasons that we've talked about trying to avoid Dallas or Colorado in the first round. Now, Sean, at the same time, I watched the Wild game yesterday, and yes, I understand it was 3 goals in a minute 44 or 46 or whatever it was against Seattle, but I continue to be impressed by the way the Minnesota Wild has played. So to that extent, then it's important for the Jets to finish ahead of Vegas also, to win the West. So in terms of the President's Trophy, I mean, I don't believe in curses, so I don't buy for 1 second that, if the Jets win the President's Trophy, they're automatically going to, not be able to win the Stanley Cup or go deep in the playoffs because of some curse attached to that. I think that's absolute garbage. And, it's just not, it's not a thing. It's just not a thing. That's like when people say, you said shutout, so that's why the goal was scored. I mean, that's just absolute ridiculousness here. So at the same time, the most important thing is the Jets peaking come playoff time. But at what we're talking about, if you're asking me, if it's more important for them than it is to, whether that's Washington or someone else, sure, to a degree, yes. It would be something that they would be able to hang their hat on, but it doesn't mean anything when it comes to playoff time. Everyone starts at 0, like we always say. But I do think it is important to a degree for them for all the reasons that you sort of touched on.
I want to address this. BA Split says, celebrate success. What's the problem? I guess this is what I'm thinking. So right now, the way that things are going with that third line, you could argue that they're where they're at, not because they're not trying. The first line's where they're at, not because they're not trying, but maybe just like psychologically, mentally, the grind. And again, we've heard this before. Rick Bowness talked about it. Scott Arniel will talk about it. Playing the way the Winnipeg Jets do is really, really hard. It's physically draining, and physical draining over an 82-game season, if you're any team, is mentally draining. That's just how it goes. When you got to come out and perform and grind night after night, just the NHL in itself is mentally draining because of how physically draining it is. But to play to the degree that the Winnipeg Jets do, that's physically draining and it's mentally draining as well. So I guess what I would say is, put it this way. If the Jets find, okay, this is how I'll put it, Ken. If you find yourself winning the President's Trophy, that's great. That's great that happens. That's a real marker for you to throw up into the rafters and something that the fans can look after. I'm not saying I don't think the Jets should win the banner, or that I don't want for Winnipeg Jets fans for them to win, for the Jets to win that banner. But I guess what I would say is, if I was a coach right now and I looked at my team and I thought, because I'll tell you this, Scott Arniel seems to be very calm with where the Jets are right now. I thought he was fairly calm after the Vancouver game. He's not like bringing the whip out. He's not yelling at them and he's not blowing up or anything like that. He seems to be very calm. And what I sense from that is a coach who's like, listen, there's 12 games left in the season. We've put ourselves in a position where we are going to have home ice advantage in the Western Conference play up until the Western Conference final. Like, do I really need to put the whip to them right now to make sure that we win that trophy? Do I really need a team that may be a little bit drained emotionally, mentally, physically? Do I need to say, I don't care, get up and go so that we win that banner? No, I think that would be a mistake. I still think the Winnipeg Jets may win it, and they may do it like they did tonight, where they get their best from their fourth line and their second line, where they don't have their top players kind of leading the way, where they pop up for games like I believe they will on Tuesday against the Washington Capitals and have a really good game and then maybe slough off. Do I expect the best from the Winnipeg Jets against the Buffalo Sabres on Sunday? I don't. Will they win? I think they probably will, but I think we may be talking about a game on KNR after that where they're not, at the top of their powers, and that the third line won't be back to the blueprint for the third line. But I just think there's no need to put the pedal to the metal right now to win that banner. If you win it, it's great, but you don't coach to win it. You don't play to win it. If you play how you need to play to prepare yourself for the Stanley Cup and just happen to win that award, great on you. But I don't think it's something that I would be changing the way the team is playing or asking more from them right now than I think they could give so that you could hang that banner up at the end of the season.
Yeah, totally fair. And I think that that's sort of where we're at. But Sean, we talk about this all the time. You know, unless you're hanging a Stanley Cup banner, like no one's going back and saying, you know, the Boston Bruins had the best regular season of all time.
Who is the President's Trophy winner 5 years ago?
Right. I mean, literally, Brad Marchand told me like that season means nothing to him. Nothing. Like, so because they lost in the first round. So it's not the be all end all, but I mean, sure, in terms of attracting, you know, a little bit of league wide attention, and, you know, someone in the chat room said it. I mean, in terms of ticket sales, of course, it's something. But what the Jets need to do is, you know, get on the magic carpet and go for a ride. And that is what's going to reignite the season ticket base, the fan base, the corporate base. And, you know, that's what the team would be able to build on. I mean, they're going to have to exercise some demons in the playoffs if they want to do that. And, you know, whether they went, like Sean, we saw it last year, an 8-game winning streak at the end of the year meant nothing in the playoffs, but mostly because of what you said before. They lost a ton of games before that because they had to get it turned around in order to get themselves feeling better about themselves. So, you know, they need to peak and, you know, start peaking in the middle of April. But at the same time, I don't think the Jets will be putting things on cruise control at all. I like the demeanor that Scott Arniel has been exercising here. You know, he knows where the Jets are at. He knows it's tough. He's not going to crack their whip right now and try to say, you know, I know someone in the chat room suggested the other day it's time for him to read the Players the Riot Act again. Not a chance. No.
What he should be doing right now. That is the opposite. Yeah.
Not now. No. I cannot be more clear. That is artificial. Like, the Jets are playing fine. They have some things to clean up. They know that. There will be a time where he's going to need to crack the whip during a series at some point, metaphorically speaking, obviously, for those who are curious. Now is not that time. Like I said, I think the third line is played a lot better game today. I think they have more to give still, but that is a testament to them. And when you are one of the best lines, if not the best third line in hockey, they have more to give. Top line, same thing. You know, the natural stat trick will tell you that at times they got caved in terms of scoring chances against versus scoring chances for. But Sean, what have we been talking about all year? And I'm with you. 3-on-3 overtime means nothing come the playoffs because it is not available in the playoffs unless under any circumstances, essentially. But when the Jets need a goal, often that top line has come through. And yes, it's 3-on-3, but like you talked about in the open, what did we see? We saw the exact things we talked about all season long. Attack mode, drop pass, attack, shot, game is over, right? I mean, this is what they do. Their puck possession game is, again, I'm not going to say unlike any other in the NHL because there's a lot of skilled teams out there, but their ability to create extra space for themselves is at an exceptional to elite level, and it was on display again today. So, just lots of interesting stuff all around. And, you know, that's sort of where I'm at in terms of the banners. You know, it'll be interesting to see how it goes because, you know, lots of teams are battling for lots of things, right? I mean, after yesterday was win for the Wild, they were 2 points behind the Avalanche. Now they're 4 points behind the Avalanche for third. So lots of teams have lots to play for, and the Jets are one of them.
Yeah.
But they're not going to sell out on the season to try to win the President's Trophy when the end goal is the Stanley Cup banner for them.
A couple things I want to get to first. I'm going to let you. Well, no, you just let me. I'm going to handle the second line, just that goal, that score.
Sure.
It's not like the Cole Perfetti goal that you know we've been talking about lately. It's kind of fortuitous where the puck gets to, or is it? That's what I'm going to get to. But he's in that spot. The puck comes to him. It finds him. You start hearing about puck seems to find good players and all those kind of things. He's taking the right angle from where that shot goes. But I guess what I would say is it's so again, it's a line. Vladislav Domeskov is not a big guy. Cole Perfetti's not a big guy. Nick Ehlers is not a big guy. But again, the success of this line starts coming down to the idea that they are driving to the right places. And what I'm talking about in this is a lot of people see this goal and they think Nemeskov fires the spot from a low angle spot way along the boards. It just goes off. It's a bad rebound. Everyone's going to say with Skinner, and it is. It's a bad rebound, but there's a reason it's a bad rebound. Rebound goes right to Cole Perfetti. Boom, it's in the back of the net. The reason that rebound is like that and it's kicked out the way that it is because Nick Ehlers is driving the center lane and going straight to the net. So what Stuart Skinner's immediate thought is, I need to get this puck out of this vicinity because the biggest danger on the ice right now is Nick Ehlers. He's right in my kitchen, and if I stop this puck and it sits there for a second, you got a fast player with fast hands who's going to pounce on this, and it's going to be in the back of the net. So the only thought he's thinking in that moment, because he sees through his peripheral vision Nick Ehlers coming on down, so he just kicks the puck out as far as he possibly can. Now it just happens to go straight to Cole Perfetti, and boom, it's in the back of the net. But that all happens because of the distraction that's created by Nick Ehlers. He's doing the right thing. He's driving the net. He's going to the dirty area, all those things. So while a lot of people, and it'll be a debate, because a lot of people are already saying what I like to say when it comes to the TCB lamplighter. The Tanev goal is them just going and doing exactly what you want your fourth line to do, creating chaos, getting to the front of the net, battling to the hard areas, while the second line goal looks like it's a bit of a cakewalk goal compared to that. It's not, because the right things are being done and the same principles are being followed as leads to that fourth line goal. It just looks like it's a little bit luckier, but hard to be a goaltender to compute what's happening in that situation when all you're thinking is get that puck away from Nick Ehlers. If you want to touch on that, you got to be quick, Ken, because we want to talk about defense before we do go here.
No, another great point there. And some folks were asking, and I think you highlighted it already, the response, but Scott O'Neill was asked about Vladislav Domestikov, who kind of was knocked down, incidental contact scenario, but he's fine, came back and played. It was a really smart low shot by Dylan Samberg again. And as you mentioned, Perfetti's not hanging around in the weeds. He's lurking, but he's not hanging around the perimeter. He's going to the right spots again. That's just a really smart play all around. And as you mentioned, that play doesn't happen without the net drive. And that's, we always talk, some of the talk these days is about, if it's not a primary assist, it doesn't matter. Well, Sean, one of the most important parts of the entire play doesn't end up on the score sheet, right? Yeah. So I don't like that analogy in the boxcar statistics. I think it's ridiculous. So sometimes the guy who makes the play is the guy who would have had the third assist. So anyways, that's all I've got on that. And yeah, I mean, I think that line had another strong game, and Ehlers was moving. And I know some folks on Twitter and other places, that was embellishment on the Corey Perry penalty. No, that was a dumb penalty by Corey Perry, who has drawn lots of penalties. His stick is up way too high, Sean. You cannot give the referee an opportunity to call that. He only gets one look at it. It's up around his neck.
Fine.
That's a dumb play.
And I agree. It's a dumb play by Corey Perry. There is no need for the obvious embellishment that happens there. Nick Ehlers' reaction is not the reaction of a guy getting hooked, whipping his feet out. That is a clear embellishment to the point that maybe Corey Perry goes by and he shouldn't have his stick there. You open yourself up to a penalty. His coach, if I was his coach, I would walk into the room afterwards and I would say, listen, I know that sucks. I know he embellished, but you can't put us in a situation in a tight game like that. So while I agree with that 100%, Ken, I do not think Nick Ehlers does himself or the Jets any favors diving the way he did on that play. That's a clear dive to me. I don't think heading into the playoffs, you need the karma of doing that to referees who go out afterwards and look at that play and think, jeepers creepers, at the very least, I should have called embellishment on that. That play, if he gets hooked down, he kind of gets tugged back a little bit. Maybe it's still a penalty, and great. He created it. Like, I know Kevin Sawyer on the broadcast called it a veteran play that he drew that penalty the way he did, because he talked about there being embellishment as well. I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with players embellishing and embarrassing the refs like that. I didn't like that play by Nick Ehlers. Well, I didn't like it by Corey Perry. I don't think Nick Ehlers needs to do that and put the Jets in a situation where officials feel embarrassed by the Jets going into the playoffs.
Well, I mean, and they already reacted. I mean, Zach Hyman clipped his feet in overtime, right? I mean, it could have been tripping. So that's what I was going to do with it.
Right? I was going to say that. So then in that play, you don't get that, but
I get the benefit of the doubt because.
Exactly. And when I looked at it, I think what's happening is he's just turning himself. They click skates in the end. I don't think
Agreed.
It was a penalty, but in real time, when refs have to make that call, I think, to your point, he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt. But beyond that, Ken, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt there, and he probably doesn't get it the next time he sees those refs. So while I agree with you 100%, Corey Perry doesn't need to be doing that. Nick Ehlers should not be doing that. I think you embarrass the officials. I don't think it's goodwill in sports. I don't think it's good sportsmanship. Great. You got yourself the penalty. Maybe the Jets win the game on that. I still think it bites you down the road. You don't need to be doing that. I don't think that's good hockey. I don't like seeing that. Anyway, you got to chime in just quickly, and you got to get this done in like 2 minutes. I'm going to hold you to a clock here, Ken. 5:52:30. Brady says, anything on Fleury being benched? Do we see 64 or 14 get a chance to come in? Wouldn't mind seeing what 14 has before the playoffs.
Brady would like a bring back, say something nice about Ville Heinola segment.
Well, he loved it. He was one of the biggest fans of that segment. But I guess what I'm saying, Ken, is, Fleury in this situation here, I know you didn't like Colin Miller's game. You didn't think it was the best game that he had here tonight. Do you think the Jets' depth defensemen are putting themselves in a situation where they may be opening the door to Logan Stanley or maybe even Ville Heinola down the stretch here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Mike McIntyre, my colleague, asked Scott O'Neill about it, and Scott pretty much said it had more to do with sort of just how the rotation got out of sync. And what we know is that Hayden Fleury was out on the ice when Brandon Tanev scored the go-ahead goal and got an assist on it. So, I don't see it as a huge concern. Like I said, I thought he could have been a little bit more careful with the puck on the first goal, but I also thought it should have been stopped. The Jeff Skinner shot should have been stopped by Connor Hellebuyck. So, the pairing itself has not been great lately with Miller and Fleury, and they've had lots of moments, Sean, up until December 23rd, where that pairing was excellent for them. But until Neil Pionk is back, if those guys want to stay in the lineup, they're going to need to elevate their game to a degree. Does it open the door for Logan Stanley to get in here? Maybe. Again, I'm a fan of Ville Heinola, parts of his game, but right now his game is not at a place where it's going to help the Jets win playoff games. That's just where we're at right now. He still remains an insurance policy in case of emergency break glass if Pionk and potentially Morrissey are not available for whatever reason. But I don't see Ville Heinola getting a ton of action late. I think it's more likely that we would see Elias Solomonson before we see Ville Heinola again, quite frankly. And that's more of a carrot at the end of the season for him in game like 81 or 82. Logan Stanley, could we see him again? Yes, but I will take Scott O'Neill for his word because he put Hayden Fleury out on the ice in the third period. I mean, yes, he only had 10 something here. What did he have? He had 10:40 today. Colin Miller had 13:15. Again, Colin Miller has had a very strong season for the Jets in a lot of fronts. He has not been playing his best hockey of late, and I understand, he had been in and out of the lineup to a degree of late. So I think he has another level to hit. I think you could say the same for Fleury. I really liked Fleury's first game with Luke Shen. The pairings have been jumbled a little bit here lately, and let's just put it this way. I think that the third pairing needs to play better. Speaking of injury updates, Neil Pionk was riding the stationary bike today, according to my colleague Mike McIntyre, who saw him close to the Jets' room. So we'll see what the latest is when the Jets get back home here in terms of this week to week, how long it goes. But yes, the third pairing needs to be better. Like, there's lots of people that need to be better, and I would say that both Colin Miller and Hayden Fleury would probably be the first to tell you that they have another level to reach.
Yeah, I would just say this quickly. Ville Heinola, the ship sailed. Like, he's been sitting around too long for them to know what they have in him down the stretch here. And I honestly don't really know where you would pencil him in on the lineup. Like, I guess throw him alongside Shen. I don't know, but I just do wonder if there's a scenario here where, in a the potential for guys like Fleury and Miller to kind of grab the brass ring here and run away with it. I think they've missed a little bit of that opportunity. And I just have to say this, Owen is Owen, who I love having conversations with, but I could not disagree with this more. Ehlers has a well-established diving record at this point and rarely gets those calls anymore. If he slips one by now and then, good for him. No, this is the worst possible advice you should give to someone if they're getting a reputation for diving, is to say, keep going and maybe you'll slip one through. No, the opposite. You have to clean that up and start earning your penalties and earn that trust back with the officials. This is the worst advice I could imagine for this, regardless. This is one by ESH I thought was interesting. I feel that officials don't call embellishment enough to detract players from trying to draw penalties, blame the officials. I can actually get 100% behind this. I think if officials were a little bit more like they were back in the day, sticking players with the embellishment call, which I think is a little bit like the scarlet letter, you would see it happening later. Not as much, but happening less. But yeah, I think that I agree with that. I would like to see that happen more often in the game, because honestly, I don't care who's doing it, on what team they're doing it. I kind of hate embellishment calls. Just play the game, just do it right. I do think that there's a karma factor to this, and I think down the road, if you start seeing teams get burnt for it because they've burnt referees in the past, I have no sympathy for teams that do that on the regular. Okay, Ken, time for us to get to sorry, I need you to give Sweet Lou a shout out.
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Rolla Page Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
My goodness. Gift guy, come on. K&R viewers say it was not embellishment. You're trying to tell me that the fans of the Winnipeg Jets are siding with the player on this one? I call me dumbfounded. I will say the embellishment in that case, it did pay off for him. He ended up getting the penalty. So on this day, it pays off for Nick Ehlers. And hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. All right, Ken, getting to the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, not a ton of great candidates in this one, but somebody in the chat room pointed one out that I thought caught my attention. Really good hustle play by Mark Scheifele at the tail end of a penalty killing situation for the Jets, and on a night where their power play let them down, penalty kill picked them up. So I'm going with that.
I'll go with it as well. I like it. That's our Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs got you covered play of the game, brought to you by the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, what do you got for the keg save of the game?
Yeah, my temptation is the Hyman overtime, but Sean, it's got to be the shorthanded chance for Connor Brown, because if that goes in, there's no overtime chance. So I get it, but if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't make the save with 1:04 left on Connor Brown coming down on a 2-on-1, there is no overtime save to make. So I'm going with the regulation save on Connor Brown.
I like the overtime save, to be honest. It's one of those ones that it doesn't look spectacular, and it doesn't look spectacular because Connor Hellebuyck is, anticipating and getting to the spot. I think that even over last year, and I think last year was great, but it's the one thing, if you remember, Ken, when he signed that contract extension, he came in and he talked about that was the area of his game he was really looking to improve, was the anticipation and moving to where shots were coming from. This is just another one of those examples of him being a step ahead of the play, and he gets over and it's big and boring. It just hits him. It's not, he's not making a glove save, he's not blocker, but he's just getting to cover the biggest part of the net. And for me, that's enough. And that's why it's my Hashtag the keg save of the game. But you may have a different opinion, you folks out there. If you do, or if you don't, you should share it with us. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be Bardo. Bardo, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. And I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that leads us, Ken, to our TCB lamplighter of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to leave the Tanev goal for you. It's a beautiful goal, a grinding goal, getting to the net, great perseverance off the post, banging it home. But, again, I'm with you. 3-on-3 goals don't matter in the playoffs, but we're not in the playoffs. So I'm going with you call it snake charmer, call it whatever you want, but I'm going with the Kyle Connor 12th overtime goal of his career, just because those Jets did exactly what we've been talking about for weeks now. Their ability to create space in overtime at 3-on-3 is exceptional, and great finish by Kyle Connor on the goal. So I'm going with I'm leaving the meat and potatoes to you. I'm going with the highlight reel special here.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go not necessarily with Tanev, the meat and potatoes, which I typically do. Like, I think it's a repeatable goal. I think that's what they have to do to score. I think in games like that you want those lines to jump up and do that. But I'm going to go with the Cole Perfetti goal. I'm going to go with the Cole Perfetti goal, and I'm just going to do it because, once again, the same principles are there, driving the net, creating that confusion, creating that chaos in the front of the net. But what I saw again in this game tonight is the second line, which I still think, regardless of, this line is kind of like the Jets themselves. No one's going to believe in the Jets until they go into the playoffs and prove that they can get it done in the playoffs. And no one is going to really believe in that second line doing well in the playoffs because they look like they're too small, because Vladislav Namestnikov looks like he's not supposed to be a second line center, because Cole Perfetti is, a younger player, and younger players, it's harder for them to do it in the playoffs. And because Nikolai Ehlers does not have a long list of past playoff exploits, there's every reason not to believe in this line. But down the stretch here, as Brady talked about, when the first line has not been its domineering self it was earlier in the year, that second line has done what you want second scoring lines to do, and show up and put the puck in the net when the first line has not been doing it as much. And they did it the right way. So for me, that's the TCB lamplighter of the game. But it doesn't matter what myself or Ken think. It matters what you think. Share with us your TCB lamplighter, your favorite goal of the game, and you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, head on down and get one yourself at 11290 Keniston, where you can join them in their store or in their tap room. Try lots of their different delicious beers on tap. Try some of their great food. It is just absolutely Shangri-La down there. You got to go check it out, folks. And that brings me to our winner, the TCB Lamplighter winner from our last show. I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced Dear Sam or if it is Dursum. I don't know, but it is DYRSM. DYRSM. You left a comment in the comments below the YouTube video on the YouTube channel page. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. Let me assure you, as you are about to find out, it is the nectar of the gods. All right, Ken, anything to say before we go?
Yeah, you bet. We went an hour and 3 minutes really without talking about Josh Morrissey on a night where Josh Morrissey is 1-1 for 2 and 27 shifts for 27-29 of ice time, 2 shots on net, 6 shot attempts, 2 hits, 2 block shots, and conceivably scored one of the most important goals in the game after a great feed by Nino Niederreiter. Yes, we talked about it a little bit, but just wanted to cap that. Tie a bow on the show by mentioning another impressive performance by Josh Morrissey here.
Well, and I ripped on Darnell Nurse for the lazy giveaway, but give credit to Josh Morrissey. He's the guy who jumps the route and gets the puck, gets that control, leads it down the ice, and gives everything time to set up. Like, he really gives that play time to breathe. And you can see he does so by being challenged in the neutral zone, where he just kind of does a little bit of an elusive move and doesn't panic with the puck, doesn't move it. He just keeps that kind of pacing and allows Mark Scheifele to set up in the right spot, Kyle Connor to set up in the right spot. This is, like I said, these cross plays that they do as a set play. So Josh Morrissey is a guy, he to your point about people not giving credit for secondary assists, he gets the secondary assist on this one. He probably has more to do with that goal than anybody else on the ice. Ken, you just described probably every Kenny and Renny show we do, in that we do not give nearly enough ink showtime to talking about how phenomenal Josh Morrissey is, because he's just basically phenomenal every single game. Ken, great job here tonight. Great job by all the folks out there. Thank you for joining us. Even if you're checking that Ehlers play through the aviator blue glasses, we still love that you're here. And if you love being here and spending time here in this space, we would appreciate it if you'd show some of the love to our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, Flame and Comfort, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnson Group, TransCanada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We will reconvene here on Sunday after the Jets play the Buffalo Sabres. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.